As a UNESCO Man in the Biosphere Reserve, we see to it that there be innovation and dynamic in terms of the protection and conservation of Palawan. The compatibility and balance of conservation and development should be the prime focus of the PCSD. And there is a law called Strategic Environmental Plan for the province of Palawan, so that we would be able to maintain this. PCSD, the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development, is the site authority for the UNESCO Man in the Biosphere Reserve.
Palawan is located in the southwest part of the Philippines and stands as the fifth largest island of the country. The archipelagic province is composed of 1,768 islands and islets, and it is bounded by the South China Sea and the Sulu Sea. With about 2,000 kilometers of coastline, the island topography consists of highlands and rolling terrains. Palawan is the island of the Philippines where sustainable development can be found. Therefore, Palawan is the site of excellence, demonstrating a balance between economic development and biodiversity conservation. Due to the remarkable beauty of its nature, Palawan was declared as the world's best island in 2013 by Travel and Leisure magazine and the top island in the world by Condé Nast Traveler in 2014. Because of his geographical location and historical immigration waves, the culture of Palawan can be best described as colorful and diverse. Moreover, several tribes still live on the island. In addition to his rich culture, the island of Palawan has incredible scenic spots where we can find a splendidly unique flora and fauna. Palawan is a place of many beaches, coral reefs, mangrove forests, and an impressive rainforest.
Although that Palawan is the last frontier, and biodiversity-wise, we also know that Palawan is very rich. And in terms of food security, especially on marine resources, Palawan is the major source of fish for the whole country. And there are lots of endemic species. We don't want to happen that Palawan would reach its peak and start going down. That's what we're trying to avoid, because if we lost the last frontier, where are we going?
On the other hand, the island was experiencing a growing population and strong economic development impulses. Hence, the Palawan biosphere was more fragile than ever, and his long-term sustainability was at stake. To overcome these challenges, the protection of biodiversity in Palawan was in the implementation of the Strategic Environmental Plan for Palawan Act. The law is a comprehensive framework acting as a guide for the local governments and the government agencies regarding their actions towards the environment and the management of Palawan's natural resources. The main strategy of the CEPLO remains in the ECAN, the Environmentally Critical Areas Network. ECAN consists of a protection and control system for the development of Palawan and is intending to use a classification system of the territory by zoning to delimit the critical zones of the island. Therefore, the ECAN is mapping Palawan's land and coastal areas, including special areas protecting the tribal and ancestral lands of the province.
Before the law was passed, Palawan's ecosystem is being degraded rapidly. Our forest degradation is about more or less about 19,000 hectares per year. The law has helped conserve what we have, because if the law was not passed, if the SEP was not passed, the forests of Palawan could have vanished.
Since we had the SEP law, since we had the PCSD, we have partners in the protection of our environment. They provide us with the technical support.
In terms of identifying areas where certain types of activities should not be allowed, I think PCSD has been doing its job through the mechanism has been the issuance of strategic environmental plan clearances. There is at least a body that screens activities or projects, at least in regard of whether or not they will take place in an area where they should be allowed.
As a biosphere reserve, Palawan fulfills three basic complementary and mutually reinforcing functions: conservation, development, and logistics. Biosphere reserves has three interrelated spatial zones: core, buffer, and transition zones. Under the Palawan SEP law, which institutionalized its biosphere reserve designation, the core zone delimits the area of maximum protection. The buffer zone is further subdivided into restricted use, controlled use, and transitional use zones, while the transition zone corresponds to multiple use zone. The PCSD organized the Palawan Knowledge Platform for Biodiversity and Sustainable Development to serve as the clearinghouse information sharing mechanism. The PKP initially complements the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, but subsequently evolved to encompass and pursue the UN Agenda 2030.
We should really plan ahead, even the 2020 and beyond, of what would happen to Palawan, what would be our contribution to the country, and what would be our contribution to the globe. So this is what obligations that we should do, being members of this Palawan Knowledge Platform.
PCSD also has what we call the Palawan Knowledge Platform, in which we're part of. And it's very useful for a small NGO to be able to access the data that they provide and to be able to connect with other NGOs, other organizations, other government agencies that are working towards sustainable development in Palawan.
The PCSD also possesses an important educational component on the field. As for example, the PCSD has an information educational campaign caravan offering to citizens general and more specific information on sustainable development and special laws that are implemented in Palawan. In this way, the people are better informed and environmentally responsible behavior is further encouraged. The Palawan Biosphere Reserve is also invested into MABS programs as a member of the World Network of Biosphere Reserves, specifically with the Southeast Asian Biosphere Network and the World Network of Island and Coastal Biosphere Reserves.
There are international partners we've been working with, the University of Queensland in the capturing of coral reef ecosystem services, with the World Bank and also the Wealth Accounting and Valuation Ecosystem Services, pilot implementation in the southern Palawan. Yes, there are others helping us. We have the Center for Appropriate Technology in Austria, which is a European Union funded. We call this a zero carbon project. It's a marketing brand that basically is so ideal, yet we would like to achieve to the most that we can. Then we have the Asian Development Bank, Japan Bank for This is a poverty reduction program, which is Japan funded. We're doing this in an islet of southern Palawan.
The Palawan Sustainable Development Agenda, this is consistent to the United Nations Agenda 2030. As we know, in 2015, the United Nations adopted the new Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals. Immediately, Palawan adopted its own Sustainable Development Agenda. Basically, the Palawan Sustainable Development Agenda is being implemented through its Palawan Sustainable Development Strategy and Action Plan. So with that, we know we will be able to see a good life for the people of Palawan because our biodiversity is protected while we promote economic development.
For Palawan, it's more of we're supporting local government units in terms of establishing and strengthening marine protected areas, as well as protection of critical habitat like Tubataha reefs and other fishing ground in Palawan. What we usually do is that our programs are synchronized with the local plans of the local government, and even at the barangay level, village level. We always make sure that it reconciles with the plan of the local government units to ensure that it's more institutionalized. It really has to be transferred, or it has to be sustained by the local communities. With PCSD, there are two fields that we usually work with them. First is on science, and then second is policies and plans. For the science, that's where the researchers actually come in, because PCSD has their own pool of experts as well. So we usually work with them.
The two flagship projects of Center for Sustainability, which is the Declaration of Cleopatra's Needle Critical Habitat and the Saving the Almasiga Tree Project, would not be possible without collaborating with Palawan Council for Sustainable Development. A lot of the technical data, a lot of the technical support actually came from the organization. For example, a lot of their division heads were present in community organizing, in bringing the people together and explaining to them the importance of what are critical habitats, or what are core zones, say for example, and why is it important to have our areas declared as protected areas.
The vision of Palawan is we would be the model for sustainable development, an innovative and dynamic province in the Philippines and even in the world to a certain degree. The PCSD is the driver for sustainable development and making science-based decision-making, all innovations, and see to it that we will continue to move forward in maintaining the cultural integrity, the ecological integrity, and even the economic viability in the whole province of Palawan. So this is our challenge.